Please can we confirm the recording has started? Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending this meeting of the Council on Tuesday the 19th of July 2022. My name is Councillor Julie Berry and I'm the Mayor of Chorley. Before we start the usual proceedings, I'm sure we were all saddened, greatly saddened in fact. It's just dreadful news to learn about the death of former Councillor Rosie Russell. I'm very, very, very fond of her, and I won't say many words because I've been indisposed, and I just wish to share those words with Jeff and Rosie's family at an early opportunity. So please can we stand, please, to observe a minute's silence. Thank you. Would anyone like to contribute with a few words, please? Thank you, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, it was a bit of a shock when we got the news about Rosie, particularly, obviously, a larger-than-life character, Madam Mayor, as you've already pointed out, and particularly as we all saw her at your mayoral do, dancing the night away in the style of Rosie Russell. And she had a style. She very much had a style. Her and Jeff were very much a double act. She was a councillor when I came onto the council. A lot of time for the pair of them, very different in their own ways, but Rosie will be missed, if only for the dancing with myself and yourself, Madam Mayor, at future events. So yes, our group is sending the condolences to Jeff and the wider family this time. Thank you.
Sad that this is the second meeting where we've had to stand up and talk about the ex-councillors, and I think the one thing you can definitely say about Rosie, that she was a larger-than-life character. She might have been, you know, diminutive in size, but in what she delivered was absolutely fantastic. I think you could also say about Rosie, you never knew what you were going to get. You know, she had a way, I think, and I'm sure Councillor G will. She had a way of grasping attention at times. You know, I think the one thing you could definitely say that, you know, Rosie, just by the nature of the number of people that were in the church, I think that says everything about her. And we do send our deepest condolences to Jeff and his family. You know, it came as a shock. I mean, we were sat on her table and she was really in good form. You know, some of the best I've seen, and it is extremely sad, and our condolences.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to do just a little bit about Rosemary. She began on the council in 2006 and did 2 full terms and left in 2014. So I came across her first in 2008 when I got elected. During most of the time she was on the council, she was the lead member for health and older people, and she did a good job. She also, like everybody says, and I've just brought one, she had her own style, and often she would be wearing something in her hair. If not a butterfly or a clip, and it was always colourful. So I just wanted to show you that, and I've just brought one of those and put the other one in. Yes, she had her own style. She's very outspoken, never rude, always supportive, and just an all-round pleasure to be with. And the last time I saw her was just before I went on holiday, and she brought flowers round for something that I'd done for her. Shock, horror, what's the flowers for? What's happened? They're for you. So, yeah, it's hard work, and I just wish she was still around. Thank you.
We have some members joining via Teams this evening, and members of the public are welcome to observe the proceedings on our ever-popular YouTube channel. I kid you not, I kid you not.
You're ad-libbing now.
Okay. Well, do you want me to start talking about Freddie Flintoff? Superb, superb. Absolutely well done. Great effort.
Thank you, Dan.
Due to regulations surrounding voting, only those members physically present are able to vote. However, if members at home would like to contribute to the debate, please use the raise hand function on your iPad. For members in the council chamber, if you'd like to speak, if you're well behaved, please raise your hand and I will invite you to speak. Thank you. When you are speaking, please speak towards the microphone so everyone can hear you. If anyone is having issues, please let Democratic Services know at your earliest opportunity. Are you okay, Councillor Platt? Would you like some water? Okay. Right, some housekeeping. We are not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in. Please ensure that any mobile phones are switched to silent. And if technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issue. Or if this is not possible, a new date and time will be organised. And we have had our moments in the past, but let's hope tonight goes very well. I have a few apologies. I have Councillor Roy Lees and Councillor Keith Hidden.
But Keith's joined on Teams.
Oh, and welcome to everyone on Teams. So that's a miss of me. I can't see you wherever you are. And obviously to councillors and to members of the public, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Councillor Boardman's joined on Teams.
Councillor Boardman, I believe, is on Teams. I have no knowledge of this because I'm looking at the screens and I'll just take your word for it then. Okay, right. The minutes of the meeting are Tuesday the 17th of May 2022. We've all got them in front of you, pages 5 to 20. This item is for decision. Are there any issues to raise on the accuracy of the minutes, please? Councillor Alistair Bradley.
Can I propose that those minutes are taken as a true and correct record of that meeting? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do we have a seconder?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The recommendation is that the minutes of the meeting be approved. Thank you. Can I have a show of hands for? Thank you. And against? Any abstentions? We're all done here. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of any interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda this evening. Are there any interests to declare? Thank you, Councillor Whiffin.
It's a non-pecuniary interest for my dad's church, Chorley URC, on the levelling up bit later on.
Thank you. Any further? Councillor Riggett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As colleagues will know, County Council, I'm the County Member for Economic Development and Growth, and I have the delegated authority to make the decision with regard to some of the funding referred to in the Council's bid, and I've given that in principle support to Councillor Bradley in meetings we've had prior to this date.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, item 3, Mayoral Announcements. Very brief tonight. I'm playing catch up, unfortunately. I've been indisposed recently, and it's with great regret that the Civic Sunday was cancelled, and whether or not it comes back in some form or another at some stage, be most welcome, but we shall see. So we'll update you on that in the future as soon as we can. On the 12th of August, we have a Ukrainian welcome event. Members are invited to an event organised by the Council to welcome Ukrainian guests arriving through the family scheme and sponsored family scheme and the Homes for Ukraine scheme. Sorry, I've repeated myself there. The event will take place in the Lancastrian Suite on Friday the 12th of August between 1 and 4. If you'd like to attend, please contact Laura Platt for catering purposes. Thank you very much. And what's great, I'm just going to have a date here, which I want you to obviously book in your diary on the 10th of March. It's a bit in the future. I'm sort of working my way backwards. On the Friday the 10th of March, there is going to be a Mayor's Charity Ball. Please make a note in your diaries. It's going to take place in the Lancastrian Suite on Friday the 10th of March, as I've stated, and further details will be circulated nearer the time. I very much hope that you'll be able to attend. I have an extra announcement, and that's to congratulate Gary and the senior leadership team for winning the Municipal Journal Senior Leadership Team of the Year Award. That's awesome. So well done. Can we have a show of hands? Thank you. Anybody wish to comment? Oh, should we...
Not Councillor Wilson.
Okay. Right, we'll move swiftly on. On to item 4, public questions. We have a public question from Mr. Hunter Russell, who will be joining us via Teams this evening. Just to be clear on procedure, Mr. Hunter Russell, you may speak for up to 3 minutes to explain the context for the question. Following the answer, you may ask one supplementary question. Mr. Hunter Russell, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, just to be clear, I've asked like 3 questions. Is that 3 minutes for all parts of it? All 3 questions?
3 minutes?
In total.
3 minutes in total.
Oh gosh, right, I'll get reading. Cheers. So first part, the government has provided £2 billion worth of support for bus services across the country during the pandemic because bus services weren't viable while passenger numbers were down as they were. That support is due to come to an end in October, and I just wondered if the council has looked into whether any of the local services in Chorley are likely to be under threat once that support is withdrawn. Second question, also about buses, is young people are required to stay in education or training until the age of 18, and the vast majority of young people in Chorley have to travel outside of Chorley for this provision. The cost of a bus pass, for example, to Runshaw is £475 a year. To Cardinal and Newman is about £409 a year. So obviously that's an extra cost for people in further education in Chorley that other towns don't necessarily have to pay. And particularly with the cost of living crisis coming this winter, there's an opportunity there for Chorley Council to help people with the cost of living in terms of subsidising those bus services. It also subsidised bus services take cars off the road as more people would choose the bus, and it puts cash back in the pockets of those families. So I was wondering if the council have ever considered subsidising bus services to the extent of free bus travel for young people or those in college, and if they've never considered it, will they look into that, into the feasibility of that? And then the third question, I was watching the Licensing and Public Safety Committee meeting on the 6th of July, and there was an amendment proposed to suggest that one of Chorley's 36 Hackney licences be made to require that that vehicle is an electric vehicle or a zero emissions vehicle. And I was very disappointed that that amendment was rejected. The committee discussed the cost of purchasing an electric vehicle and the additional upfront cost, but they didn't discuss the total cost of ownership, i.e. the reduced running costs, the reduced maintenance costs, the reduced tax costs. They also didn't discuss the impacts on air pollution. Air pollution across Chorley is bad on many measures, because of the 2 motorways that surround the town, because of people burning solid fuels, etc. And NO2 in particular is in many of the diffusion tubes around the town is more than double the World Health Organization recommended annual average. So yeah, disappointed in the decision to not make one of those licenses require that it be an electric vehicle. And I wondered if the council have a mechanism for reviewing that decision and whether they'll consider reviewing that decision, and also whether they will be in the future looking at all hackney carriage licences and private hire cabs in terms of emissions.
Yeah, thanks very much for your questions. Councillor Bradley, please can you respond?
Certainly can, Madam Mayor. Do you mind if I sit down? Because obviously
Absolutely.
Mr Hunter Russell's online, so it's probably better for the microphone if I sit down and do it, if that's all right with you, Madam Mayor.
Perfectly fine, thank you.
Thank you. Of course, Mr Hunter Russell, Andy, happy to answer any questions supplied by a member of the public at any time. It would possibly be easier if you emailed questions rather than just doing it through the full council meeting to myself or any other councillor, whether that's your ward councillors, and there's 3 of them here this evening, cabinet member or whatever, because we will always respond to residents in a timely and a detailed manner from this administration. I'm also conscious you've asked a number of questions of a similar manner using the public questions route. Obviously, we're aware, Andy, that you are a political coordinator for the Green Party as well, so I would hate to think you're using the council meeting as a political platform, particularly now, as the Mayor highlighted, was streamed on YouTube. So I'd hope that you are asking this as a member of the public and no way in your political role, particularly as you've been unsuccessful twice now in elections and obviously need every vote you can get. As an experienced campaigner, you'll also be aware that 2 of the 3 questions you've asked don't really appertain to Chorley Council business, but I will, of course, as always, try and respond to it in whatever way I can. So in regards to the first question around the bus service support, no, I'm not aware of any effect on bus services in Chorley. LCC are the Transport Authority, and therefore perhaps if you ask this question at County Hall in a question, you may get a better response than from myself, but I'll leave that to you. What I would say, obviously, is take the opportunity to say that Chorley has invested over 700,000 in supporting bus routes in the last few years, since 2016. And obviously you will, speak up in support of a Labour administration, I'm sure, delivering that in Chorley and in a manner that's not seen elsewhere in Lancashire to anything like that scale, and certainly not seen in places like Lancaster or Burnley, where there's a larger green presence. Perhaps if they were doing that, we'd all be in a better place. Unfortunately as well, and I can't avoid having a pop at the members opposite, support doesn't happen nationally or locally from the Conservative groups massively, certainly not from central government. There is no coordinated joined-up transport policy that I can see, and because Lancashire is a disparate county as compared to Manchester and Liverpool, we suffer as a result of that. So I would love to have a joined-up transport policy in Lancashire, but we are a long way from that at the moment, but we do hope for the future. With regard to the second issue around transport to colleges for young people, again, this is not a Chorley Council issue. It's a matter for the central government and the independently funded colleges. My understanding is that the money received from the colleges from central government is insufficient, but they decide how much they put into their transport budget. It's not targeted particularly, so it isn't targeted to people who need it. It's given out a little bit to everybody. And obviously, colleges, particularly like Runshaw and Newman, increasingly are busing students from across the wider areas, which must cost more money, you would have thought. Again, if you wish to take up that matter at County Hall or Westminster, I think we'd all be delighted to see cheaper transport for all. There was a sub-point of your a question about young people and the youth zone, I think, in your written question, Andy. And you'll know this council has worked with the youth zone to supply the £1 stagecoach transport for young people to get them into the town centre for £1. The idea of that was also young people valued that. It wasn't free, so they would value the fact it would cost them £1. That was on the advice of the youth zone. And also, with the support of our opposition in this matter and the last budget, we reinforced spending for free transport from the villages into the youth zone as well. Although the youth zone continued to insist, because we spoke to them after that meeting, that it was better doing the work in the villages or trying to get people to get coordination, or trying to get people to coordinated on same nights from one village was difficult. With regard to the third item around the council's licensing and public safety committee meeting, the issue there, I think, was very much that there is a global matter here for the whole of the licensed taxi industry, which we are only a small part, and we need to work across with drivers and with operators, because they tend to operate across wider geographic areas. There are also other issues that I understood were discussed at that meeting around the problems we have getting disabled taxi availability, around geographic coverage of taxi services, particularly in rural areas, which is why as a council we've supported the dial-a-ride and that bespoke taxi service, particularly during daytimes when taxis aren't as available, and we will continue to support those. I think also the specific issue of pushing one taxi to be a green taxi or to be an electric vehicle is somewhat iniquitous, given that you would force one operator and one licensee to have to change without any funding or support from the centre or at the moment from ourselves, because we've not put that budget in place to do that. What we'd rather doing at the moment is we're lobbying government along with other councils to get changes to our entire fleet and to look to get that in place quickly. But as we've seen from the Greater Manchester Clean Air issues, you need to take people with you. Penal doesn't work. People oppose the penal policies that are imposed. What they want is properly funded incentives to change their behaviours, particularly when electric vehicles cost more money and have infrastructure that's required that isn't currently there. And again, that needs proper government funding, because as a standalone council, Chorley can't do that. I have a bit of an issue with some of the air quality numbers that you raised, and I'd like to go back and check those, but my understanding is that generally Chorley is not particularly high on the air pollution. The problem is the M61 motorway and the topography of that motorway, which doesn't tend to be a taxi-related item, but I'll come back to you on that by all means in the future. This issue of greening, particularly the bus fleet, I think, rather than the taxi fleet, because they are far greater emitters of pollutants, is something we are looking to enshrine in our strategic plan coming forward later this year. It's certainly detailed and will be further detailed as part of our emerging green strategy, which I'm also aware the Green Party did, as I would expect, Andy, a detailed response to and put many ideas forward, a few of which I'm sure we'll adopt because some of them were perfectly sensible and were already in our plans anyway. But to put forward ideas that are uncosted and unworkable at the expense of one portion of the population, I do not think is sustainable. It's not a matter for the licensing committee to discuss strategy. They are there to impose the current licensing regimes. I think the chair and other councillors mentioned that at the meeting, and that's why the decision was taken as it was. But we will, of course, consider it as part of wider strategic plans later in the year. That's the end. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do you wish to ask a supplementary question, Mr Hunter Russell?
Certainly got some supplementary comments. I mean, first of all, on the comment that I should just contact you via email or via my ward councillors. I'm sure you'll remember my initial emails about the Green Agenda documents when they were first published in February 2020, and it took me the best part of the year to get response to them.
Can I just stop you there, Mr Hunter Russell? Can you ask a question, please? Keep to the point. Thank you.
Okay, I'm responding directly to the point that Mr Bradley raised, but okay, and then on the point of the 1 out of 36 taxis and that being unfair, that's like the point that was raised at the, I watched the full meeting, I listened to the debate, but the point that was raised was that you have grandfather rights for those licenses. So whenever it is changed, it will change as the licenses come available. So it will always be for one taxi.
Excuse me, Mr Hunter Russell. Could you? This is not a debate. Could you just ask the question? Thank you.
Okay, I don't have a question. I was just responding to that point. I'm happy to send you information on the air pollution as well.
That'll be welcome. Thank you very much for your time and thank you very much for your questions. Good night. Thank you. Please stay with us if you wish. Thank you.
Thank you.
On to 21 to 42 and to follow 147 to 160. This item is for noting. Please note an updated copy of the report was published only yesterday due to some formatting issues. Councillor Bradley, please can you present the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll take a stand up now. Thank you. Yes, obviously this is the council report, the annual council report, which documents in great detail, and I take my hat off to those officers who put this together to document all the things that this administration is doing across Chorley. delivering on its pledges and its promises that we've done, delivering on some of the things that we've seen emerge through, as we've just heard, around climate change, post-COVID, etc. There's a lot of detail in there, and the annual report is fully detailed. It's tried to be made easy to understand with some graphics and what have you. It details our priorities around involving residents in their own local area, involving ensuring that residents have a clean, healthy and safe communities, having a strong local economy, which obviously is in my own portfolio, and basically trying to do more for the council than we possibly may see other councils doing. That's backed up a little bit by the resident survey, Madam Mayor, which of course shows room for improvement and is documented in paragraph 14, but generally showed that the majority of residents, certainly in comparison to other areas, were happy with what the council was doing, that they were satisfied with some of the areas that we were focusing on, which was parks and green spaces, recycling and waste, etc. And it also documents around some of the council spending, around where we've put our money over the past year, Madam Mayor. I think the ultimate test for any annual report isn't in this council chamber, it's at the ballot box. And every year, Madam Mayor, we see more and more Labour councillors on this side of the chamber, which I'm delighted about. I think that's a ringing endorsement of our plans. We deliver on our plans, never 100%. As I said before, Madam Mayor, we can always do better, and we will strive to do further next year to ensure there's yet more Labour councillors in this council chamber, and hopefully no Greens to spend all our money. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yep, happy to second it, Madam Mayor. I prefer the original format with the writing across my face. I thought that was a significant improvement, actually. But I am delighted to second the report. As Councillor Bradley said, the challenge has been there, particularly coming out of COVID, and I think that challenge has been met as it outlines in the report, whatever area we deal with, whether that's delivery of key projects such as Astley Hall, or whether it's environmental improvements, or whether it's projects in local neighbourhoods such as the improvements to play areas noted in various wards, including your own, Madam Mayor. So I think really it's a good package, but as Alistair quite rightly said, there's always more work to be done. You always want further improvement. But the one thing I would like to put on record, Madam Mayor, is that these things don't happen by accident. They do happen because we have very, very good officers. You mentioned quite rightly the award that we got for our senior management team, and it is congratulations to the team because obviously they help direct and coordinate the policy and also the culture of the organisation. But it's also congratulations to our officers at every level who deliver it on the ground as well.
Thank you. I will now invite members for their comments and to ask any questions. Where shall we start? If you just want to pop your hands up if you wish to speak. Oh. We'll just note the report. Perhaps consider a bit more discussion for the next item. That's all right. I'm going to have to be using this and demanding more debate. Thank you. Question time, indeed. Goodness, well, we're now at the end of the discussion. Please can we note the report? Thank you. Can we just show of hands? We're okay, thank you. Item 6, the Executive Cabinet, pages 43 to 46 and to follow to 161 to 162. This item is for noting. Councillor Bradley, please can you present the report of the Executive Cabinet held on the 16th of June and the 14th of July?
I can indeed, Madam Mayor. I would note the minutes of those two meetings and happy to take questions on any items that were brought up. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Wilson, second report. Thank you very much. Is it hot in here? All right. Right. The decision is the report is noted. Thank you. Task and finish groups, pages 47 to 50. This item is for noting. Councillor Walker, please can you present the report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 7th of July?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council members to approve the minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny meeting held on the 7th of July. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ainsworth, would you like to second the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second the report of the ONS committee on the 7th of July.
Right, we live in hope. I am now inviting members for their comments and to ask any questions. Right, report is noted. Item 8, scrutiny reporting back. Chorley Council's annual report on overview and scrutiny in 2021 to 2022. You can find the information at pages 51 to 62. This item is for noting. Councillor Walker, please can you present the report?
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, can I ask us to note the annual report of overview and scrutiny?
Sorry to interrupt you, Councillor Walker. We're just addressing a heating issue with the air conditioning. Just bear with me one moment.
So in introducing the annual report, can I thank members of the committee for the work they did during the year. If members have managed to read the report, they'll see we got through quite a bit of work during the year. So I'd like to thank the members for their patience and work that they did. Also, can I thank Matthew, who is the Democratic Service representative who looks after the overview and scrutiny, for his work in compiling this report. And finally, Madam Mayor, can I just say, during this year, we will look at cycling. Thank you.
Positive news. Councillor Ainsworth, would you like to second the report prior to the debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second the report.
I will now invite members for their comments and to ask any questions. No, I just want to say, you know, decisions are made in this room. I would really encourage perhaps the next meeting for consideration that there is some discussion as we present these reports. Thank you. This report of Councillor Hill-Heaton. Right. The report is noted. Item 9. The Governance Committee, pages 63 to 66. This item is for noting. Councillor Platt, please can you present the report of the Governance Committee held on the 1st of June? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to present the the report from the meeting from the 1st of June. Thank you.
Councillor Clifford, to second report, do you wish to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second that report, please.
I will now invite members for their comments and to ask any questions. Can I just highlight then, this report is noted, but can I highlight that item 10, the levelling up funding bid, has confidential information within it, so we'll be taking that in private session later on in the meeting. We then swiftly move on to item 11, shared services, future development, phase 3. Pages 67 to 90. This item is for decision. Councillor Bradley, please can you present this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try and speak up over the noise of the blower. Obviously, Madam Mayor, members, we've discussed previously at various meetings around the next phase of shared services, and there was a proposal to maintain the trajectory of shared services, but to maybe consider a couple of things alongside that trajectory. One was whether there was a whole-scale change, given that we've had some issues around merging in some of the existing services that have moved across, and to improve those, and also a bit about being more opportunistic on which services we look to do further shared work on. Also, at the back of that, there was the idea of increasing management capacity to deal with any further shared services, and that was very much in the minds of the Shared Services Joint Committee that met a few weeks ago and considered this report, and this is the outcome of that meeting. So that committee considered a number of options for potentially sharing services. It has lighted on one service that both councils have issues with, which is around property and assets. To look to do that, it's an area that both councils struggle to recruit to and retain staff, in common with many other organisations, including, I was hearing the other week, the police commissioner bemoaning the fact that they can't get property and asset staff either at the moment, so most public bodies are struggling with those kind of staff. To move forward with that, that would enable the function to be larger, would help us to pay a little bit more money, and hopefully to give people career development, which would help to both attract and retain those staff. The other one, the second recommendation, which is in paragraph 3, is to approve the approach to reviewing further opportunities for sharing following the phase 3 service reviews, with any proposals to be considered by full councils prior to service those reviews taking place. And that was very much, Madam Mayor, around making sure that we embed what's happening at the moment, to look to build on some of the successes that we have seen, to make sure that there's nobody left behind in the arrangements that are currently in place, and then at that stage then look to whether we want to take yet further services forward. All that's detailed in the appendices attached. There was a lively debate, I think Councillor Collins would agree, and others who were on that committee, around some of the options and some of the issues that we were experiencing. But I think the recommendation should be acceptable to both councils and allows us to keep that progression going, but focusing on the areas that need it most. So happy to make the proposals. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would you like to second the...
Absolutely happy to second, Madam Mayor. And just to, I think Councillor Bradley's outlined perfectly clearly why we're proposing the shared services scheme for the property services. And just generally on shared services, Madam Mayor, I think it's fair to say we've seen benefits, we've seen financial savings, we've seen resilience in teams, and we've also seen a better ability to recruit into the areas where they have shared services. It's also fair to say we've seen some challenges and some issues as well that we've had to deal with. So I think a step-by-step approach which is being proposed at this stage, which is obviously the property services team, is sensible. It also allows those further issues to be dealt with before we come forward with any further proposals, if and when we do think that that's necessary, Madam Mayor. So, as I say, happy to second and believe that this will actually help us provide those services for the council across the two authorities.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Can I invite members to make any comments? Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Oh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was promised a nice line. It would be helpful if we could appreciate what proportion of staff had already been through the shared services process, what proportion would be moving in what is proposed this evening, and therefore what proportion will be left at the end of it.
Would you like to respond, Councillor
I
Bradley?
will try and respond. In terms of the numbers that have gone through, it's around about 46%, I think, from memory. It changed a little bit because the numbers are changing constantly in the organisation, but that's a number that we're all fairly or comfortable with. In terms of this service is quite a small service, and that's part of the reason we're doing it, because it's smaller than it should be. There's not enough people in there. I think it equates to about another 2 or 3%. So it'll take us towards tipping over to the 50%. The Chief Executive is nodding, so I've got the right number, guessing it, working it back from the overall establishment. It'll take us to around the 50% mark. That's there are a number of large areas that of staff that are obviously not been into the shared service arrangement, street scene people, etc. They're the largest chunks of the left. But back to that, we're getting to the tipping point of the majority being in shared services now and the minority being left in the legacy establishments.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor France.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to make the point that as a member of this committee, one of the things that impressed me the most was the fact that members both of South Ribble and of Chorley, officers, have had their terms and conditions improved, because what's happened is we looked at who provides the best in terms of days annual leave or what have you, maternity pay, what have you, and it's been rounded up to the better of the two arrangements for both councils. So in actual fact, the staff satisfaction surveys have come out such that the people who are now under shared services have a higher staff satisfaction than those who haven't. And I think that's something we should be applauded on. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, so we're now at the end of the debate on this proposal, and obviously you've got recommendations at paragraphs 2 and 3. Can I see a show of hands for 4, please? Thank you. And against? Any abstentions? Thanks very much. Question 12. Questions asked under Council Procedure Rule 8. And this is to follow at 163 and 164 in your agenda. A question has been received. Just to be clear on procedure, please ask your question and you'll receive an answer. There will be no discussion. You may ask one supplementary question arising from the answer given. Okay, very clear. Councillor Collins, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and you were encouraging debate and discussion. I feel somewhat aggrieved. Following, obviously, the fire quite recently at the Claynor landfill site, a number of residents expressed concern to myself, to Councillor Mrs Guns, I'm quite certain to Councillor Clifford as well. So I did submit a series of questions which I think should be out into the public knowledge, so I did it through this process. They are detailed on agenda item 12, and I did indicate to Democratic Services I would be happy with a written response, which Councillor Bradley has kindly given me tonight. I'm more than happy with those answers. With one slight clarification, I'll come back to you. So, thank you.
Councillor Bradley, please can you respond?
I can, Madam Mayor, and I'll stand up and do it. I'll circulate what I've responded to Councillor Collins with just before the meeting, and the reason with that, we were still writing it earlier on today, so I will circulate it to all members, but just for the wider awareness, Councillor Collins asked about the first question about what was being tipped there, and the answer is the Environment Agency controls what's tipped there. It's set out in a permit that's publicly available online. I sent a copy to Councillor Collins earlier as appendix. There's 10 pages with about 40 items on each page, so there's about, do the maths, it's 400 or 500 items that can be tipped there, everything from basic wood, paper, sandstone, soil, to sludge and arisings from sewage works, but it's all described as non-hazardous waste. But what we're going to do is ask the EA as part of their investigation to establish exactly what has been tipped there recently. They control that through the waste operators' licences and the controls that are in that process. The second question about the risk of toxins to smoke, again, you'll be glad to know that there are experts involved in this, not people like us, although our environmental health officers are some of those experts. And the first thing that was happened, the UK Health Security Agency took the lead with the Environment Agency around the smoke impacts. They effectively set up what they call an air quality cell, which is a group of people who are aware of these kind of things. They involve the meteorological officers because they have to dictate which way the wind's blowing, and other technical advisors. They were meeting constantly as the event was taking place. They initially categorised the incidents at level 2, but it was swiftly reduced to level 1. And level 3 would be the level which would actually mobilise air quality monitoring. So it wasn't actually mobilised, but given other factors, we kept reviewing the need for that assessment and that monitoring in case it was required. But because of the direction of the wind, the dispersal of smoke plumes, etc., that wasn't required. But it's there if we need it. And the air cell was effectively instigated and was there all the way through. Councillor Cullen's third question was about the cost to Chorley Council of this incident. The site is regulated, as I said before, by the EA and the County Council in terms of planning. It's a tip, effectively. So we have limited support that we provide through that. Obviously, we respond as part of the event to the Fire and Rescue Services, who are the lead responder in that situation, and they dictate what they want. We've estimated there's about 3 days of officer time, primarily environmental health officers and their support, and they would have been basically aiding the Fire and Rescue Services. Obviously, we've also done communication, so there's communication officers' time and support time from other officers. But altogether, we anticipate, not more than 4 or 5 days full-time equivalent working. We also supplied an awful lot of sandbags, £740 worth of sandbags. For those people who know the price of sandbags, that's a lot of sandbags, and that was at the request of the fire brigade to stop the runoff of water and keep it within the tip area, because the tip have a way of dealing with contaminated water that's been in the tip, and we didn't want it going further afield. So, in summary, the current estimates are probably between £3,000 and £5,000, which we would seek to get back from the operator should they be found to be in breach of their licence. But the EA will do the investigation. And that was the final point, actually, that Councillor Cullen's made, which was what plans are being put in place to ensure that won't happen again. The EA has confirmed that once the initial emergency response is out of the way and they've got everything back to something like normal, they will be the focus on the investigatory role. It's their job to do that. They'll review any breaches of conditions that they find, anything that actions or enforcements are required, and whether any additional lessons are to be learnt and controls put in place for the future. Just as a comment, and what we have there is a legacy tip that's now being used to extract methane in an area that's become increasingly residential. In the past, it was in fields, it was surrounded by not a lot of neighbours. It now has increasing numbers of neighbours, whether they're in Clayton or Buckshaw or all areas around. And therefore, I think long term, it's not the right thing in the right place. But with any existing use, it takes time to change that. What we need to see is these protections being put in place to stop the smells, to stop the fires, to stop any public nuisance, because those residents must be increasingly nervous living next to that operation and thinking what's next on the list of the four horsemen of the apocalypse after the things that have happened. So we will work with our partners to do that. It's not our job to lead on it, but we are certainly happy to respond and be part of any long-term plans for that site. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Collins, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
No supplementary, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for the detailed response. I will write by. There is one piece of clarification. Thank you.
Could I just put on record thanks really to everyone involved, people, officers, all the agencies, particularly the Fire and Rescue Service, for diligently helping to resolve this serious issue. Thank you. Sorry, item 13. We're here to consider the notices of motion given in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 10. There are no notices of motion received. So we'll move swiftly to item 14, exclusion of the public and press. Which point of order is that, please?
It's a procedural point of order with regards to this item. I think one of the things that we're actually going to now discuss is one of the most, I would say, my apologies, it's on. One of the most comprehensive discussions that we'll ever have that will affect this town of Chorley. I quite understand there are a lot in this report that is required to be in part 2, and that's the figures. But I would ask that this is split and that we look at part 1 for actually to get this discussion out into the open and to get this to the people of Chorley.
Just bear with me, Councillor Collins. I'll just take some advice. Thank you.
It's all right, Chris is going to give you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just ask the monitoring officer
Sorry?
Just ask the monitoring officer for a ruling.
I'm just asking the monitoring officer for a ruling on the matter. Just bear with me. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the basis that there is a debate around the presentation attached to the report. Sorry, Councillor Whittaker. On the basis that the debate is confined to the presentation that is appended to the report, then we can have a debate above the line, where members are reminded that the confidential information contained in the body of the report, that should not be addressed above the line, because it's commercially sensitive information.
Financial aspects.
So just to be clear, that's no discussions about the financial aspects of this report. Thank you.
So,
Right, well,
so We're just going to, which doesn't contain the financial information.
Okay. Do you have a point of order, Councillor Bigot?
Matter of clarification, Madam Mayor. So we're going to have a debate in part 1 and part 2?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor... Councillor Bradley, would you like to present the report?
Rachel's just gone to get the presentation, which will be the debating items.
Okay.
So
Please partake of some corporation pop if you're feeling overwhelmed by the climate in the room tonight. Thank you. Right, we're ready to roll. Can we be a bit of quiet in the room, please? Councillor Bradley, would you like to present the report? Is there a presentation to follow or now?
I can look at that one. I'm going to struggle to look at that one.
His eyes aren't that good. No.
Struggle-eyed at the best of times.
Ready to go?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank
you. Thank you, Mr. Alan Collins, for Councillor Collins even, for throwing me completely from my spiel. But anyway, right. So yes, members will be aware, and again, we've discussed this, I think, in part 2 of Cabinet Papers, potentially, and within groups. Hopefully, your groups have been briefed. I know my group has been briefed, and hopefully, the opposition has as well. This is around levelling up bid. The government announced quite recently that it wants to do these levelling up bids. We were quite late coming to the Category 1. You were banded as Category 1, 2 or 3. Chorley was in banding 2. We were put up to banding 1, mainly through the good offices of our MP, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, badgering like mad there in Westminster, and obviously making representation on behalf of Chorley, that we have the opportunity to bid for up to £20 million of levelling up monies from the government that other towns, you'll be aware, have had previously, that we haven't. So we have to have a project that can be, it was supposed to be submitted about now. It's actually now being submitted in the first week in August because bizarrely the government's portal wasn't ready to go. So they pronounced a plan and they weren't ready to go. So imagine that from the government.
They're a bit busy.
They're a bit busy, yeah, they're distracted. And then, yeah, it's helped enormously. I'm sure Rachel's very grateful it's been delayed. And secondly, it was to be delivered, actually built out by 2025, which is a big ask for a project where you're getting £20 million of investment that you have to put something similar towards. Therefore, it's a big scheme to do. That precludes us putting forward many schemes because they are A, not ready to go, B, they involve partners, which slows things down because they may suddenly change their plans and ideas and it's beyond our control, and you need to get planning permissions in place and all the rest of it. So the sites need to be effectively cleared, to quote the phrase from the late Boris Johnson, oven ready and ready to go. Therefore, the only areas really that we are able to do that in Chorley at any great scale is in the town centre, because members will notice opposite there is a big cleared space. There are other spaces in our town centre that we can connect to, and that will also hit the targets of the government of what these bids are intended to do, which is to regenerate post-COVID, particularly town centres, to provide housing, to provide community benefits and wider benefits, and also peripherally, for us anyway, transport, connectivity, linkages and all the rest of it. So all the things that we always go on about, that's what they're trying to achieve. Can we go to the next slide, please, Matthew? I quite like saying this. Next slide, please. Sound like a health service person. So we're going to focus on the town centre, and it's a 3-site approach. So next slide, please, Matt. You'll be aware of our master plan. It's currently being looking to upgrade it. It's a little bit dated now, but it is what we have used to focus the development of Market Walk, extension, etc. And it's that general shift of the town northwards and eastwards. And we are still on that path. Next slide, please. Members are obviously know the town centre. The big green space in the middle is the current Civic Square area. The bit to the far side is the bypass, and you can work out from there where everything else is that you all know. We have delivered some of this master planning site because the Market Walk extension is there, the youth zone is there, and other improvements that we've done in the town centre are there, Primrose Gardens, etc. What we are now looking to do is to build out some of those remaining bits as part of this bid. Next slide, please, Matthew. So 3 areas: Civic Square, that's the space across the road, the United Reformed Church, which is obviously off Union Street, in between Union Street and Hollinshead Street, and Bengal Street Depot, our depot that we are increasingly decanting out of. Not the site adjacent to it, because that's not under our control at present, although we have expressed an interest in it, which is the old gasometer site. Next slide, please. They are linked in a way because they form part of what I think was referred to in the master plan as a civic quarter. The bit between Hollinshead Street and Union Street and over to the Town Hall. So you can see on the bottom left, the Civic Square, in the middle, Hollinshead, with the library and the St Lawrence's Church in between, and then the depot site up off the roundabout on the bypass. Also, as part of the scheme, the linkages between the two, particularly Hollinshead Street, the steps down to the Swanway 2 next, all the rest of that would be looked to be upgraded as well and do environmental improvements, street scene, etc., to make the connectivity between those areas. And as people have said, the steps down to the Swan these days and that area down the bottom are increasingly unattractive to spend time in, and therefore could use a bit of polishing up. Next point, please. That's a very good map that shows connectivity, but move on, Matthew, please. Next one. So the Civic Square site first across the road here, where the old Buzz Bingo and Royal Oak back in the day were. Obviously, it's all been cleared now. Next slide, please. Are we going too fast? The idea there is to create a civic square directly opposite the town hall, squeeze down the carriageway. We've got 6 lanes of traffic almost out there that you could fit 6 lanes of traffic on. We don't need that because effectively it's only a 2-way running lane at the moment. Create a multi-space, that's our civic square space, and we'll show you some images later of what that might look like. Provide some greenery. There's not a lot of greenery in Chorley Town Centre at the moment. Provide F&B, is food and beverage units, but they could be retail units, etc., across the centre of the site. And then behind that, because it's a split level site, which the next drawing shows better, is a 3-deck car park which supplies the same number of spaces that are currently on that entire area, which is what the retailers want to see. Over and above where the retail units are and the car park are, the idea is to provide accommodation. That could be rented accommodation, private accommodation, hotel accommodation. You decide. This is a concept drawing at the moment. Next plan, please. That's a bit of arty-fartiness from Rachel's team. Next slide, please. That's a better drawing for me. I'm a practical kind of cove. So narrowing this carriageway down, creating the civic square, car park on the right, units on the frontage, which then front out onto the civic square with tables, chairs, all the rest of it. A nice area. Next slide, please, Matthew. We'll skip that one as well because that just confuses me. This is a section across. If you studied Nigel Clare's looking across the area, then you would see that the town hall level is higher than the Cleveland Street area, which backs onto the post office and Boo's yard. The idea is to have that civic square area with the trees and the open space with the church in the background, the bars and restaurants area at the ground level with apartments and units above, and then the car park at the back with further apartments on top of the car park at the Cleveland Street end. The elevated garden is a bit like what you see in Manchester when you have a ground deck area with a roof and then apartment blocks above. So it's a bit of city living in the centre of Chorley. And I think it's a very interesting concept. It took me a while to get used to it when I first saw it, and I didn't need it to like it, I'll be honest, but it's growing on me. Next slide, please, Matthew. That's an image of it, so that's looking from the town hall towards what is the big building in the back, is the back of Boo's and the post office building. So that creates an idea of what it would actually look like, although under that central garden area would be car parking space. Okay, next slide, please. That's what it looks like with a nice fancy statue. And the idea of fountains is that you can walk on it, turn the fountains off, walk on it, and it looks nice when it's not being used. Worst case scenario, it could be car parking, but it's a space we can use as our, for Christmas light switch-ons and all the things that we do in Taste of Chorley, all the events we do in Chorley, where by what we've done on the flat iron, we've taken some of that space away. And as you can see, it's quite a substantial structure in the background, and therefore this is a large space that we don't currently have in Chorley. Next slide, please, ma'am. That's another picture of the lovely statue in the middle. That statue I don't think will be ever built anywhere in Chorley. Next statue, please. The large what's it or a piece of licorice, whatever it is. Next one, please. Yeah, and that's looking again from Barclays Bank, or soon to not be Barclays Bank, looking along towards the church. But a very much a different aspect than what's currently there. And again, very much a concept design. Next slide, please. So then Bengal Street. Members are aware it's our depot, so you know where it is and what it does. The idea there, next slide, is the idea is to create some kind of living that we don't have apart from the office block across the road, the old accountants' offices, Sumner House, with some large frontage, mill style, because we don't have many mills, bizarrely, and they've all been knocked down and cleared for other kinds of uses. So next slide. And also what the designers call colony houses. A bit of a strange concept, this. It's supposed to evoke thoughts of weavers' cottages back in the day, where you've got two houses back to back, one upstairs, one downstairs, but high density living. And if Councillor Boardman was here now, he'd be lapping this up, because this is what he's been talking about for years. High density housing. Part of this, what this will do is help, hopefully, give us some housing numbers, and rather than sacrificing yet more green fields for more 4-bedroom detached houses with 4 cars. That's not what we need. What we need is high density town centre housing with very few cars, because you will not get lots of car parking on this site. Next slide, please. So that's the layout. On the frontage, the higher level apartments. At the back, the colony housing with landscaping, etc. Stood off the railway line, and with a commercial element on the corner to the roundabout, which obviously people will be aware there are commercial uses in that area as well. Again, very much a concept to be worked out in due course, but this is the outline. And a circular road that takes you all the way around internally, but not masses of car parking. This is for people who don't want to have a car and can access the bus station, train station, and transport that is very close by. Next slide, please, Matt. And that's an idea of what it may look like from looking north from basically from Trader Jack's, from the Hollinshead pub. The big frontage on the corner, and then diminishing out as it goes into more residential areas up Stump Lane and up towards the A6 going north. Okay, and just a comment, no definition on whether those would be, sold units, rented units, social units, what have you. That's all to be developed. We've looked at lots of modelling. They all work, as you'd imagine, in Chorley. The final item, the Hollinshead Health Hub, is a long-standing project that the United Reformed Church have wanted to see developed. They've brought various plans forward for our support. We've been unable to support them to the aspirations what they wanted to do previously. This is an opportunity to do that, to do some of the community work that is part of the bid and is required as part of the bid. Next slide, please, Matthew. And that is the existing churches on the left, bottom left-hand side, but all the outbuildings at the back, which are quite extensive if you ever do go down there, but in bad state of repair. New build, which is the brown bit at the front, which is a more modern building. And the idea is this is flexible community space to support. There's a lot of work goes on there already from that church in particular, but other groups as well who provide community kitchens, outreach work, community support work. And Chorley is crying out. We've got lots of groups, lots of people to use these places, but not enough space and not enough good space for them to use. Hopefully, if we, that we can lean on the church to work with others, we can make this a centre for everybody to use, and it becomes an asset to the town. And if you just keep moving forward, the idea is also, that's the general layout, so you can see the scale of it. The church is on the left, top left-hand corner. The rest of it is quite large compared to the church, and it's not, it's not a tiny church. Next slide, please. That links into our Union Street office, which is the large white building in the bottom centre. Obviously, you've got Stanley Street and Byron Street. Yeah. I should know, it used to be my ward. And then the car park at the back of the printers that we obviously have as well. So it will make that car park a lot more manageable, usable and efficient, and would also facilitate the church, but also a lot of green linkages there, a greening up, and to create walking routes through from Bengal Street, through to the town centre and backwards and forwards, and also down Hollinshead Street and back around to the Civic Square area. Next slide. Is that done? That is a proposal. It's extensive. It's a once-in-a-generation, I think, opportunity. We tick all the boxes. We're ready to go. We know it will work. We have delivery experience in doing these things. Therefore, to us, it's a no-brainer. We would love to do a big project out in the villages or in the rural areas or somewhere else in Chorley. but to be quite honest, the sites aren't there. If you know sites that could be there and in the future we can bid on in the future, we'd love to work them up. But we need something that's, and it's a very short term from the government to me, too short term delivery requirement, but that's the game and that's the game we have to play. So thank you to Rachel and her team for working up that proposal very, very quickly, and happy to take questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Debate.
Right, let's open up for debate then. Thank you. Thanks very much for your presentation, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you.
Councillor Cullens.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and could I thank Councillor Bradley for giving this opportunity for this debate, because I think it's very important that this is out and home with the people of Chorley and they can actually see what's happening. You know, it is a major change to the town centre. It is something that we will need to, I'm sure, consult very heavily on. I know there was a lot of discussion around when we actually built Market Walk Phase 2 as to the appearance, etc. So very much, very much supportive of what you've done this evening. Also, I probably should declare a slight interest in something Councillor Bradley said, in that as the County Council's lead member for Cultural Services, I'm very much in support of Rachel's Arty Farty. And also to any statues that might be forthcoming, in the future. I think very much one of the things, could I just raise an item of concern very much? One of the things that we were very grateful for earlier was the briefing that we actually had from the hospital on what the future hospital was. And I think certainly I know from our side, we would have welcomed a briefing prior to this meeting. You know, a more detailed discussion and a chance to hear the views. But, as I say, at least, we've moved on and we're actually out there. We also understand very much around what the timescales are, in the sense of, it's very short to put any bid forward in any way. But what I do understand is there is a fast track that you can actually go through now to actually get the funding very quickly. You get Freddie Flintoff and Gary to go and see the new Prime Minister, and within 20 minutes you'll get a phone call. That's how it works, isn't it? Or not. Just one or two, I'd just like one or two questions, if I could, possibly, to Councillor Bradley. One of the ones, first of all, is could you tell us when you first knew of the Phase 2 Levelling Up Fund and when Chorley would actually be in Level 1?
Councillor Bradley.
Honestly, no. I'm trying to think back.
Yeah. Councillor Cullens, perhaps
I was
we can
going
come
to
back.
guess March, April, but I'm advised it might have been May. It was around election time, actually, thinking about it, because it was around that time, wasn't it? Councillor Briggett probably knows better than I do.
I thought it was March,
Right.
We'd have to check.
Any more takers? I think we're going back to check. So bear with us, please.
Springtime.
We'll come back to you as soon
If
as
you
we
could
can.
clarify that for me. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Cullens. Any further questions, please? Okay, so we're not in the debate. We're not going to vote. This is it.
Councillor Boardman.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Boardman. I wasn't looking up enough. You're welcome to start speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've waited patiently on the end of the iPad here and listened to all the debates. I'd like to thank Alistair and the team for looking into my crystal ball again. We came forward with a very similar scheme about 3 years ago for multi-occupancy, multi-use spaces in the town centre, and Councillor Bradley at the time did say he'd look at it, and he has done. So I'm very happy with that. We also looked at use at the Civic Square, or Red Square as we like to call it, outside of the group. And the fact that it's now considerably, and it's got some multi-use retail, leisure, dining, beverage, etc. So yeah, thank you very much for that, and generally very supportive of the schemes that are coming forward. My only concern is, and we're not going to get into finance in this debate, is timescales. For those of you that know anything about this kind of development, planning, discharge of planning conditions, etc., takes a considerable amount of time. Can Councillor Bradley just explain to me what he thinks the timescale is for each of the 3 sites to actually get through our planning system? in order that we have an oven-ready and a shovel-ready scheme to start on site.
Thank you, Councillor Boardman.
Excuse me. Madam Mayor, there is a programme at the back of your papers, and I'm showing them to the camera, there's evidence there, which I can't really read, but it does document all the build-out on the different parts and how it will start. Yeah. Now, obviously, that's been built on Councillor Boardman, the planning being approved and starts on site being agreed in line with that programme that's detailed there, because that's basically a cash drawdown programme, so you'll be well aware that's linked to starting on site, etc., and prelims and all the rest of it. Obviously, planning is difficult, but that's the part of that is that these schemes have been discussed before and have obviously been explored with the planning officers before. So residential use on Bengal Street has been discussed before as a result of interest from the URC Church, looking at accommodation for vulnerable people, etc. on that site, discussions around that. You'll be aware there's been 2 previous bids looked at around retail on the Civic Square area, and the site at Hollins Head, I think, has outline planning currently for a development. This might be a slightly different development, but it's not radically different. So we believe that all 3 schemes should, with the nature of them, go through reasonably straightforward. There are a couple of unknowns. One is the not so much planning as it goes, Councillor Boardman, and I'll leave that to the planning committee about how fast Chorley's planning committee can work. Sometimes it works extremely quickly, other times it doesn't. But the 2 main risks to me are contamination of the Bengal Street site. So we're doing that work currently too, as part of the money that we got, I think £1 million to do the investigation work in that wider area. So to de-risk that site, to identify any problems on Bengal Street. And then probably the second thing from my own point of view is the existing cellars and basements, etc., left on the Gala Bingo site, some of which we deliberately left in because we didn't want to spend the money at that point in time. But we did do some investigation while we had it all dug out. We think we know the extent of it, but again, you'll be well aware you never quite know the extent of things till you know the extent of everything. But we're fairly confident that the nature of that car park depth, all the rest of it, all that stuff will have to come out anyway. So therefore, that should again avoid that need for any massive risk. The risk is more around that to me and deliverability as opposed to planning. But that's a point of opinion.
Okay, any more questions? I think we need to, I think we've probably reached item 14 now, exclusion of the public and press.
Can I move exclusion of the public and press? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can I just have a show of hands for? Against?